everyone, and welcome back to another video. In this particular video, I'll be discussing the one thing that everything can stem from. Now, we might argue that life must stem from something, right? But what is the one thing that life can stem from? In certain faith belief, it is believed that through the suffering is where one might find salvation. In another faith, it is believed that it is at the rebirth that one might find salvation. But what is the stemming, the root of said life? From the root of the suffering, you may grow. But just as the leaves of a tree, as the seasons change, so do your leaves fall. And then you experience a rebirth in the spring. Now imagine for a second that this is the experience you could begin to arise at in understanding yourself. Not only do we experience seasonal changes as human beings, we also experience cyclical patterns. In the fundamental core of the stemming, you find the suffering, which suffering brings you to the last thing you can hold on as an individual. And when all that suffering is the last thing you have to hold on, you could argue you could create the entire universe from said place. A low enough resonant energy for matter to formulate from, which is what is the stemming of said universe. It is a root planted in its soil. Through the suffering, all things come to be. The question now remains, why must we suffer? There are different spectrums of suffering. A simple discipline such as teaching a child to make a decision based on a fork in the road. If you repeat, there is consequence. If you think this is a better option, I would argue to veer towards that particular direction. In the creating of the moral compass, if you did not experience one, how would you recognize the other? How can there be one without the other? It is all the same. Simply, where can you separate what is wrong and where is right? And that particular spectrum varies from person to person. And so does the spectrum of suffering. But in the growing and development of an individual, you would find that the suffering is what causes them to take on a higher intelligence, a higher power. And if faith is rooted as a strength that is invisible, but that allows you to move forward, as a now conscious universe, you are faced with decisions. And upon said decisions, you might find a discipline, forks in the road, which you are now faced with making a decision. Where do you place the boundary between what is wrong and what is right? Because ultimately, once each individual can essentially create their identification of what is wrong and what is right, then we could argue of what is wrong and what is right as a whole. But without being able to place this particular line or boundary as to where is wrong and where is right, we cannot identify the point at which suffering is acceptable in its worsened spectrum. There is a line where there is a right way of going about things. It is a very fine line. The question remains, where do you as an individual place said fine line? And that stems at the root of where you place your judgment. Without said moral compass or northern star, you would not be able to place a judgment that separates right from wrong. And we see this continuously occurring according to the spectrum of where each individual lies within their own individual spectrum of what is wrong and right. And the more we can separate and differentiate this, well, eventually you see that all walks of life are here on the garden. But the question now remains, where do we separate right from wrong? Or what must we accept? Everything to exist, including hell, including God. Must we accept everything to exist if we do not any longer have a moral compass, a northern star, that which we can separate wrong from right? Because if we can no longer separate wrong from right, then wrong from right will become one. And at this point, everything will become one, including everything. And if we are to include everything, then we must accept everything. The question now remains to you as an individual. Where do you particularly place your northern star? Wrong from right. Thank you.